Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. My, male 22, 2-year relationship ended a few weeks ago. She, female 19, was really toxic and emotionally abusive, but I want her back. 3 weeks after we break up, she has a new boyfriend. Now I know in this post I'm about to go on about a lot of negative things, but this relationship has nowhere near been that bad. I love this girl with all my heart, and I try to be supportive of her and show her love in every way possible. But this is going on 2 years, and I feel myself breaking apart. I have known this girl for 6 or 7 years now. We met at a church youth group and have pretty much stayed friends ever since. There was about a 2-year period where we didn't really talk, and after that, when we got back in touch, she changed a lot, and I started to see her in a different way. She had a crush on me from the moment she met me. Ever since, we have been pretty much best friends. The first 6 months of our relationship was great. We both put in effort. We both were falling for each other very quickly. It was awesome. Then, life started to get harder. I started to get to that point where I had my life and her to deal with at the same time. I couldn't put my life on hold for her constantly. Not only this, but I started to struggle financially because my job cut my hours and I couldn't buy stuff as much for her. I have kept a lot of this inward and I'm going to just spill it out because someone has to know all this. 1. Our 1-year anniversary. Our 1-year anniversary was back in September. A bit of backstory before this part can truly start was that I was going to college to become a math teacher. I was in my final semester, which was student teaching. For those of you that don't know, I was assigned to a school and was essentially an unpaid teacher's assistant and was being trained as to how to be a teacher. Now, this was the single most horrible experience of my life. I had wanted to be a teacher so badly, but the teacher who was in charge of me was absolutely terrible. She verbally abused me every day and had the most impossible standards imaginable and blamed me when I didn't reach them. I was there for about 6 weeks. Every day I went home crying, I stopped eating, and I stopped sleeping. Now, despite all of this, I wasn't going to give up. I was going to finish. But before I could, my teacher wrote a bad review about how bad I was doing, compared to her standards. And they ended up pulling me from my placement without any consideration for what I went through. So my entire future just went up in smoke. Now, I know you're wondering what this has to do with my girlfriend. Now, our 1 year happened to land on a Tuesday. Of course, most of that, say being a weekday, I was going to be in school. So I told her instead of trying to make that day work, why don't we just try to aim for either the weekend before or the weekend after to do things? She completely agreed. And we never made plans beyond that. So the day of our 1 year comes around, and after I got pulled from my student teaching, I went to my family's, which was an hour away, because I needed time. I was so emotionally destroyed because of everything I went through and the fact that I felt like a complete failure. Well, she all of a sudden comes up and is like, "You should come see and do our 1 year today." Now here's my reasoning of why I said I couldn't. 1. My family had already known that I was staying that night and I couldn't leave. 2. I was going home the very next day. And I told her that I had no problem doing something with her tomorrow. 3. I didn't have gas money to drive an hour back, do whatever she wanted to do, then drive back, only to go home tomorrow. But she offered gas money, but see number 6. 4. It was already 2 or 3 p.m. when she brought this up. 5. We didn't make plans on that day to start with. 6. I have a 20-year-old car that I can't put crazy mileage on because it is old and could break down. 7. I was still emotionally compromised and didn't really want to do that particular day. After explaining all of this, she proceeds to throw a complete tantrum saying how I don't love her and how this isn't important to me because I'm not dropping everything for her and all this garbage. She ruined my night and hurt me even when she knew everything I was going through. 2. Becoming cold. She started to become cold and mean. I can't joke with her anymore. Every time I do, the same way I do with everyone else in my life, she throws a fit. This is a conversation we had a month ago in a mall. "Hey, this GameStop used to have a movie place by it before it closed down, right?" I ask. "No, there was an empty store and then it was the movie place," she replies. "Nah, I'm pretty sure it was next to it, but I don't know." Obvious sarcasm and smiling at her. "Oh my god, whatever. I don't see why you make a big deal out of this crap." She yells at me in front of everyone in the mall and storms out. It's been really difficult. She says I always joke too far. But this doesn't seem too far. She then complains when I don't joke with her because she wants me to, and I've told her how that puts me in a hard situation because whenever I do joke with her, she gets upset like this. The second part of her growing cold is she always talks to me angrily. Tonight was this conversation. I call her and she answers, "What?" She starts off with, "Hey, are we going to church tomorrow or no?" "I already told you that I wasn't." "The last time we talked, you said you didn't know." "Yeah, well, if I was going, then I would have told you." All of this in a very condescending and mean tone, by the way. "Okay, I didn't know if you'd forgotten or not. Sorry for bothering you. Good night." She immediately hung up. There's been this constant aggravation with her. I can't do anything without her yelling or being emotionally abusive towards me. 3. She begged me for a time to get engaged to her. This one is one of the worst times in our relationship. We were in the car one day, and we were talking and the idea of getting engaged got brought up. I merely said this: "I feel like we are close to getting engaged, but there are some things I think we both need to work on before we are ready." That was all. She proceeded to have a mental breakdown saying how I don't want to get engaged to her, how it was stupid of me to say that, and how I completely crushed her. I wanted to be honest about where we were in this relationship, but she apparently couldn't handle that. So I apologized and we talked more about it. She still didn't understand what I was trying to say, and was still on the idea that I didn't want to be engaged to her, even when that was nowhere near what I said. She proceeds to try to manipulate me into getting engaged to her. Every favor I ask of her, she's like, "Get engaged to me, then I will." Even showing affection in public. I'd try to kiss her, and she would say, "No kisses until you propose." This also leads into the next point. 4. She hits me during Christmas in front of my whole family. Now, before you go to the comments and say, physical abuse is wrong, I know. It isn't as bad as it sounds, but it pretty much is. My family has this big yearly celebration on Christmas, and she of course was invited. She had wanted me to leave my family Christmas Eve night, which I already made plans with my family to go spend at her house because I need to make up for hurting her, and I said no. My family I hadn't seen in months, and I needed time with them, and it's not like she was doing anything for Christmas. She shows up, still being completely emotionless, because of how hurt she says I hurt her, and the fact I won't go over. Sits down on the couch, stares off, and doesn't move. Period. Doesn't make an effort to do anything or talk to anyone. She still, to this day, blames me for it. I sat down next to her, and I don't remember what I said, but she took her elbow and landed it right in my ribs with almost all her strength, because she was so mad. Now, my family saw this, and now they all are worried about our relationship, which I understand. This isn't the only time she has done this, too. She also got mad at me one day because I didn't give her sex when she wanted it, and she slapped me on the butt with all of her strength, and I said, "Ow, that really hurt." And she said, "It was supposed to." She also grabbed my arm and dug her nails in it, which made me bleed. Both of these were within the same day. She says she never hit me or did these things, but again, my whole family saw it. She then proceeds to leave in a huff. Call me at my parents' because she wanted me to wait to go over there until 7 p.m. when my family left at 3 p.m. I wasn't going to wait for virtually no reason. She calls me and is screaming, "Why didn't you wait for me? You could have waited." And I told her I didn't want to be screamed at again, or hit. She proceeds to keep begging, which again is like 8 p.m., and I couldn't just up and leave. And I eventually hang up, and she proceeds to keep calling me about 50 to 100 times. She eventually gave up and went home, I think at about midnight. I know this part may sound like it's my fault, but I needed time and space after what had happened earlier. 5. She puts all of her friends against me. Now, I don't know what she has been telling people, but everything I've said up to this point, she has gone on rampages and told every friend she could find, and then will come back to me and say, "They are all on my side, so you're wrong." Now, I'm not present in any of these conversations, so I don't know what was said. She says she tells them my point of view, but how can she when I'm not there? So all her friends hate me. 6. She stopped letting me live my own life. For some reason, every 4 to 8 weeks, she says she needs me to go over there for a day or for a night and just be with her. Now that alone isn't the problem. But there have been a few times where I just haven't been able to do that. I have schoolwork to do, or I have personal things at the house I have to do that are important, or anything. If I tell her no, she proceeds to be like, "I can't do this anymore. You don't love me," etc. I feel trapped at times and I can't do my things in life sometimes. We sat down and had a talk about it, and I said, "Look, I can't do everything I have to do." Go see you when you want and need me to, because that's just too much right now. And she doesn't even try to come up with a plan that will work. She's just like, welp. 7. Valentine's Day. This was this past February, and it was of course Valentine's Day. Now I had told her already I wasn't financially stable and couldn't afford to take her out to eat. I bought her what I could though. I bought her a stuffed animal and some flowers and candy, which was pretty much all I had. She then goes and posts on her Snapchat story, I see everyone going on Valentine's Day dates. Must be nice. In front of me in the car and where everyone could see it. I started to almost yell at her because I was furious and told her she knew I didn't have the money for it, and she was like, I know, but still, it hurts. 8. She talks about me badly to all her friends. One night while she was at work, she wanted me to mobile deposit a check for her because she was busy working, she couldn't do it. She hands me her check and her phone, and after she was done, she was going to come by and pick it up. Now, I did what she asked, and I went and thought, I'm going to go through her messages because I want to see if she says anything sweet about me. I go through her phone, and almost every person she talks to, she references me as a B-word, dick, dummy, and other things. To almost everyone when I wasn't even doing anything. I'm pretty sure it was about all the stuff before, and she never talks like that in front of me. I also found out she had a friend in South Carolina that she was planning on going to see, a guy friend, and was going to get a hotel room with him. Now I knew about the trip, but nowhere near about the guy. We talked about it later that night, and she apologized about it. She had canceled the trip already, which I also knew, because she realized what she was doing. And the talking bad seems to have stopped, or at least she does it over the phone where I won't know about it. 8. I think he meant 9. Her big summer trip. This is probably going to be the final straw. She has this big trip she wants to go on in June. She wants to go to South Carolina. Ring any bells? She wants to go see this guy in SC again. Now, she brought this up again a few weeks ago, and I said I absolutely wasn't comfortable with it. How could I be? A guy I don't know is going to be alone with you for hours? No. She says if the roles were reversed and I wanted to see a girlfriend of mine states away that she would let me, but I know that's a lie. I told her outright I wasn't going to be in a relationship with her if she did this. After much arguing, she agreed to give it up because she didn't want to lose me, for about a month. Last week, she posts on her Snapchat story this guy's picture. Thank you for being an awesome friend. Can't wait to see you in June. I called her immediately and asked her what that was about. Her response was, yeah, well, I'm thinking about it again. And we haven't talked about it since. Now I know after all of this, you're wondering how I could still be with her. Again, there have been wonderful times we have had together. She has made me feel so wonderful and was my first sexual experience, which was amazing. She is flat out gorgeous and is an amazing person. But with all of this, I was at my end and I couldn't take it anymore, and I had decided to end things with her. This is where the story now starts. Holy cow. So, while I was struggling with all of this, she apparently has been talking to her family about breaking up with me. She had it set in her mind that I wasn't good enough, even though I gave her everything. After everything she did, I kept coming back and I loved her more than anything. She came from multiple abusive relationships, and for her to go from being abused to acting like I'm not good enough for her, she invited me over to her house, and from the first moment, I knew where it was going. All of my friends had told me to break up with her first, which partially did happen at the end of it, which I'll explain afterwards. She then sits me down and says how she isn't happy with me and how my own life choices are essentially disappointing her and judging me for everything in my life. And what I mean when I say this is that she didn't like the fact that I was staying with family to save money. My family said that I could stay with them as long as I wanted to, as long as I was working and then saving money, which I was. She thought that I should just jump out and be independent just because. No reasoning. My plan is to save up and buy a good car and eventually a house instead of having to rent an apartment and to struggle with all of these things at the same time. She didn't want it though, and she proceeds to take literally every single minor thing I did for the past few months. Like how one time I didn't help her make her bed 3 months ago, and how she wasn't dealing with it. I help her constantly around the house. I don't know why I didn't help her that time, but I help her constantly. She got into a car accident a few weeks prior, and I drove her around that entire day and the next day to help her get situated with her rental and insurance, but she didn't remember or bring that up, did she? I then try to talk to her about these things and tell her it's unfair how life hasn't been that kind to me, but I'm doing my best with what I have. I then bring up how I've been a good boyfriend to her and how I know I'm not the best and I've made mistakes, but I've been a good boyfriend. And she full on scoffs at me. After that, I said I'm done and walked out. She called me the next day saying she missed me and she was sorry and she wanted to get back together. I said no. But now is the difficult part. 3 weeks after we break up, I come home from my new job and my grandma says how my ex got a new boyfriend. Yeah, ex before her name. I know she's been in a relationship for years. She responds with, "Not that ex." I look on Facebook and she posted that she was in a relationship with a guy she was hanging out a lot with before we ended things. I lost it. I tried to talk to her, but she was working. So I called her mom and asked her mom if it was real. Her mom said it was, and I said, "Okay, thank you for telling me. Good night." That night, my ex calls me to explain, and she says she didn't want to get in a relationship this early, but they were hanging out, and then he jokingly asked if he asked her out, what she would say, and she said yeah. Apparently, he was serious, so they went out that night, and they became official. She says that she thinks that she checked out of this relationship months before, and that's why she was able to move on so quickly. I don't know why, but the past weeks I've been flopping between missing her and wanting her back, because after everything, I still love her and I'm in love with her. I don't know why. It's aggravating. I don't want to be, but I am, and I want her back. The other side is so angry at her for being like, "Oh, you're not good enough for me," and moving on when she was the one who abused me. And I've been nothing but completely heartbroken over all of this. So I don't know what to do. Any suggestions? A couple of comments, one from Swiggler5. It seems like you're looking for a lot of reasons to rationalize it and maybe even give her an excuse and make yourself the bad guy. But the sad reality is, she started talking to another guy that was doing all the things you weren't at the time. That extra attention made her feel like the grass would be greener on the other side, so she went there. I'm sure a lot of bad timing came into play, but if she's the type of person that would make it official after one date with another guy after you dated her for 2 years, then she's not a prize worth having anyway. There's always someone better out there. You just have to find them. And a comment from Sunshine Yaz. Honestly, I'm glad you two are separated. From everything you've described, it seems like she's truly ungrateful and you're masking a lot of her bad qualities because she was your first love. You seem like an amazing person. Take this opportunity to work on yourself and your future. I know it's hard now and it's going to be hard for a while, but just think about how toxic your relationship was and how freeing it will be to be your own person again with no one holding you back. You deserve so much better. Also, I'm not sure if you're still looking into education as a future profession, but if you are, please keep trying.